Let's put this distributor in a small block Chevy. So I did an introduction video the other week explaining why this particular distributor is special with the reverse cut helical gear and all of that nonsense. So today's video is going to be about removing the old one, putting in the new one, and then we're going to compare the new and old one with the reverse cut gear and why this one's going to be better, hopefully. With that being said, let's go ahead and set the engine to number 1 top dead center, take everything off the distributor that's existing, pop that out. I'm going to show you guys how to make sure the timing stays set really close, and at the very end we will time the motor. All right, let's get to it. All right, so we've got the starboard motor here on the Silverton. It is a marine power small block Chevy. It is a Vortec motor with the GM HEI style ignition. That's why we're here today. I'm going to go and pull off the coil lead wire, and take off some of the spark plug wires here and set those to a side. And then we'll pop the cap off, and I'll see where the engine's at right now. And I am going to bar it over to number 1 top dead center, and I'll show you guys how to do that. I'm going to pop off these wires just to get them out of the way, because I'm going to put the new cap on and keep this one as a spare. I do have the cap labeled and the wires labeled with the firing order, so it is pretty hard to mess up, but I never put anything past myself on messing it up. So all right, I'll pull off some of these wires just to get this out of the way. So number 1, 7, put that over there. All right, so this is the MSD style pickup with the reluctor wheel and pickup magnet. And I'll do a side-by-side comparison once I have this out, but they are very different. That is for sure, very different. Okay, so this is number 1 cylinder right here. And obviously this is the center. So what I'm gonna do is kind of make an imaginary line starting here, intersecting with this point here, so I'll know the rotor should be pointing about here for number 1. And I'll just make a little Sharpie mark right here. Okay, so with the Sharpie marked about here where number 1 should be in line, I'm going to cheat first and use the key and bump the motor over a few times. You know, compression, it's kind of hard to just turn it over by hand, especially when I cannot get to the water pump pulley, because I can't get to the crank pulley because of the raw water pump. So let's just bump it over. All right, well, that worked a whole lot better than I was thinking, so we're close, and I'll do the rest by hand there. Now, what I'm also going to do is pull the spark plug out for cylinder number 1 and actually see if that cylinder is at top dead center. Okay, so I just pulled out spark plug number 1. That's a good time to check the condition of your plugs. I've got a fair amount of hours, maybe a year, no, probably about 2 years on these plugs. They look great, so I'll let those ride for another year. These little things are getting expensive. Okay, so we've got the rotor pretty much in the right direction here, according to the timing marks, so it should be pretty close to top dead center there. Okay, so you just saw that number one piston is pretty much at the top, so we're on the compression stroke there. The rotor is pointing basically to number one, and the timing marks again were pretty much there. You see that little notch? Hard to see. Notch is pretty much lined up with the notch on the block. All right, let's pop the distributor out and go over the difference between the two. Okay, so with the engine verified at top dead center, it's finally time to take the distributor out. Going to remove the ignition control module wire here. Just put that to the side. Now there is a retaining bolt that holds the distributor down and locked in place. So I need to figure out what size that is. Probably nothing I have on hand. Hey, that's a 9/16. All right. Let's try a short wrench. Crow's foot would be really handy. Standby. When you forget about the tools that you bought, that would come in handy for this job. Little crow's foot wrench. Let's find a 9/16. Tools. Imagine that. Oh, that's right. Distributor hold down. All right, so with that, it should just be able to pop right out. Now this is what I was trying to explain poorly earlier. So when you pull this out, you can't pull it straight up. The rotor is going to turn as you pull it in and out, up and down. So when we go to set this back, I've got to advance the rotor clockwise by about 30 degrees, give or take. So when I set it down, the rotor will come back down into number one. Okay, so for reference on this, the distributor is pointing at the second relay here. Or I'm sorry, the rotor is pointing at the second relay. So when I'm going to drop it back down, it's going to point back at number one. So we'll keep that in mind. Okay, so we've got the old original MST style distributor out. Looks about the same. Here, a little different here, but that shouldn't be an issue. Key, the gears are cut the same. These are reverse cut helical gears. Now, I'm going to go over this. So this rusty, crusty MSD style pickup, I believe, has been giving me this trouble over all these years. And this is the factory GM HEI style reluctor wheel and pickup magnet. This style has been on the port motor on the Silverton and hasn't ever had an issue because I just think it's a better setup. Now, they did make this distributor with the GM factory style, and I'm super happy about that. I can't find parts for this. I can't find a new reluctor wheel without taking this thing all apart. I can't find a new pickup magnet that has this same style connector and it doesn't have the ignition coil. I'm sorry. That doesn't have the ignition module already connected to it. This thing, done. I'm done with this thing. So, here we are. Now, this may or may not matter. I'm not sure if you need to do this or not. But obviously, the old distributor was covered in oil and the bearings were lubricated. This is brand new, so I'm probably just gonna go ahead and dunk it in there and put some oil on the bearings, because that can't hurt. This thing was expensive. I want it to last. Well, just saw that there was a lock nut or lock washer. I'm glad that didn't fall into the engine. Let me bring you guys down in here for a second. So for indexing the oil pump, come on, camera, focus for me. You can see it's down there. It's not going to focus, but the slot is this way. So when you stick the distributor down in there, we need to have the slot lined up for the oil pump to engage. And then down in there is the helical gear on the cam. For those to mesh, let's go ahead and drop this down in there. I've got the rotor turned about 30 degrees ahead. All right. So following the rotation as it comes down and knowing where the oil pump slot is we have the rotor lined up pretty close with number 1 here, so we know we're in the right spot. I marked on the oil pump I marked on the oil filter about where this latch for the plug was lined up for, so another reference mark to get the base timing at least close enough for the engine to start. So that's in a pretty good spot right there. I'm going to go ahead and put the lock bolt retainer plate back down, and then I'm going to start plugging things back up. Doing this feel. Ha! Just had to use both index fingers to get on the head of the bolt and get lucky to find the hole. So, getting that screwed down. It's on the distributor. And also just realize that you don't have to take this all the way out. You can slide the retaining fork back and pull the distributor out. So, you know, things that I should have known prior to, but whatever. Pro tip, you don't have to take that all the way out. But you do want to get it snug to start. We are going to have this loose to adjust the timing. So just snug that down a little bit. Still have some play there. What's absolutely wild to me is this cap is not even remotely old. It is like a couple months old. There's already corrosion on the points here. Y'all tell me if you have to replace these cap and rotors like all the time. It's crazy. I'm gonna go ahead and put the new one on that came with the distributor because I've got a new rotor, and I'll just keep it as a spare, or God, the trash can already, because it's just, I can't keep the corrosion off of them. It's harder to mess it up when you label everything, and got that straight. Okay. Trusty Phillips, just go ahead and screw this down. Go and plug in wires. Number 8. Number 6. Number 2. Number 4. Number 5. 7. 3. And number 1. I will say that these MSD wires and MSD plug labels have been really nice. So that's back in. We've got our lead. Coil. Let's get our ignition coil back on there, which is always tricky because it's super tight. So I start the threads. Maybe. There we go. Start it like that. Then I'll bring it down. Tighten that up good. Put that into the coil. Seat those on there. And get our coil wire. There we go. It's installed. So let's get the timing gun out. Got cylinder 1 at top dead center. We've got the distributor rotor lined up with number 1. We've got the timing in a relative place that I'd made a mark on the oil filter there. We need the timing tool to disable the ignition control module from advancing based on RPM to set the initial base timing. So I'm going to pause it here. Let's see how well I did. The distributor is snug. Everything's set best I could. I've got the timing light hooked up to plug wire number 1 into the battery. I've got the positive ready for the shunt wire. So let's see if it'll start. All right, actual cold fire start. So far, so good. Instructions say to let it warm up to about, fully operating temperature and then bring the idle back down. All right, while I'm letting the engine warm up, I haven't done anything with the timing yet, but if you move this, you can hear the change. So let the engine get warmed up, and then we'll put in the shunt based on the instructions, and we'll set base timing. I'm going to plug the timing tool into the ignition module. engine's almost warmed up, and when it's warmed up, I'll go and plug in the shunt so we can time the engine at 8 degrees. For this particular carbureted small block Chevy is base timing. Again, 8 degrees is base timing. Alright, so now there's no advance on the motor with that plugged in. The ignition coil is not changing the timing whatsoever. Now we can set base timing. Okay, again, the shunt is plugged in. We're at, let me go to 8 degrees, base. You can see where that's, maybe. Okay, so I've got that where I like it. I'm at 8 degrees here, idle about 800. And if it may not come up on camera, but the line on the crank pulley is dead on with the line on the block. Well, I think that's going to be a wrap for this project. I've got the base timing set for the manual. I removed the shunt and checked total advance timing at 3,000 or 4,000 RPMs. It's right on the money. That's great. Checking idle RPMs in gear about 650, 675, which is perfect. Out of gear idles about 800, which is a really happy place for these motors. I appreciate y'all watching this video. I know this is going to be a long one, so hope y'all made it this long to the end. I certainly appreciate it. I'm going to do a short or maybe videos coming soon on the differences between the two distributors, although I kind of covered it somewhat in here. But job well done. Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for watching.